Will one of your teachers read them in this slower one? Reading. Would you come up? Well, all of a sudden the woman stood up from where she had been digging and she said, I have to go and see my mother. And the husband said, of course, but remember to go over the mountain, not through the valley. Let's do that together. Over the mountain, not through the valley. Because in the valley was where the lions lived. What word rhymes with hen? Okay. What word rhymes with frog? Alright, so there's some parts in this song where I'm going to say a word and then you'll rhyme the word. There's also a part that you sing, and it goes like this. Ba-da-ba-doo, do, 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 ba-da-ba-doo, do, do, do. Let's all sing that together. Ba-da-ba-doo, do, 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 ba-da-ba-doo, do, do, do. I saw a bear combing his hair. I saw a bear combing his hair. Sing with me. Ba-da-ba-doo, do, 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 ba-da-ba-doo, do, do, do. Well, I saw a frog big as I saw a frog big as a log. Ba-da-ba-doo, do, 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 ba-da-ba-doo, do, do, do. Well, I saw a fish licking out of a dish. I saw a fish licking out of a dish. Ba-da-ba-doo, do, 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 ba-da-ba-doo, do, do, do. Well, this is a hard one. I saw a llama wearing a good, I heard a pajama. I saw a llama wearing a pajama. Ba-da-ba-doo, do, 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 ba-da-ba-doo, do, do, do. Well, I heard a song that went on too. I heard a song that went on too long. Ba-da-ba-doo, do, 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 ba-da-ba-doo, do, 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 ba-da-ba-doo. Give yourselves a big hand. When I was in the first grade, the principal of my elementary school, tall, red-headed Mr. Bush, called my mother into the principal's office and said to my mother, Rhoda, he knew my mother because I had older brothers going to the school. He said, Rhoda, I hate to tell you this, but your little girl isn't as smart as her brothers. She can't read. Well, from my viewpoint, I thought reading was perfectly boring. Why would anybody like to read? Because we were reading in my first grade class. You have much more exciting books that you learned to read with than I did. But we were reading from a book that went like this. See Spot, see Jane, run Spot, run. And I thought, why would anybody want to do this thing called reading? Now, my mother didn't know that I couldn't read because my mom was kind of busy. My dad had died. And that she was left with 5 children to raise, and she was working, and she didn't know I could read. Couldn't read. But when she knew that I couldn't, she took me to, on the way home from the principal's office, she took me to a large red 2-story brick building, the Idaho Falls Public Library. And we walked in, she set me down on her 2 little chairs in front of a stack of books, and she said, pick out a book. I picked out a book. She started reading. Pick out another book. She started reading. One of the books that she read had this line. Let's see if you know what this book is. But Charlotte, I'm not terrific. I'm just about average for a pig. Charlotte's Web. Now that's a little bit more interesting book than See Spot Red, don't you think? So I was so excited. We checked out a whole stack of books. And that night, when we were doing dishes, my mother said, okay, now I want you to look at the pictures and you tell me what you think those words are saying, which I did. The next day I said, Mom, can we go back to the library? And every week I begged my mother to take me to the library, and it wasn't very long before I learned how to read because it was really exciting. When I was in the 3rd grade, you guys 3rd? Yeah. When I was in the 3rd grade, I read a book that I have never, ever forgotten. This book was the story of a little girl who was a brat. She bit and scratched and punched her parents and anybody else that was around. She tipped her little baby sister out of her cradle. She locked her mother in the closet for 3 hours. And when they sat down at the dinner table, she didn't sit down with them, but she would go around the table and she would put her hand in her father's mashed potatoes and slobber it all over her face. Go to the next person, grab some green beans, shove it in her face. Now why would she act like that? When this little girl was a baby, and up until the time she was 19 months old, she was a happy, giggly, friendly little girl. But when she was 19 months old, she got sick. She got really sick. She had a fever that went on for days and days and days. She was so hot to the touch. One day her mother came into the room and she said, "Helen," and Helen acted like she couldn't see. She acted like she didn't hear her mother. Her mother came closer. "Helen, Helen." Again, she acted like she couldn't see. She acted like she couldn't hear. Her mother raced into the other room, called for the father. The father came in, and then they called for the doctor. Helen, because of the sickness, had lost her ability to see, and she lost her ability to hear. Yeah. So they didn't know what to do. So they didn't do anything. They didn't make Helen even ask her to behave, because they just didn't know what to do with a girl that could not see and a girl that could not hear. When Helen was 7 years old, her mother heard of a place called the Perkins School for the Blind and found out that they could maybe have a teacher come and teach Helen some finger symbols that would mean words and help Helen to be able to communicate. So they got the teacher. She came into the house. Helen promptly punched her in the face and knocked out a tooth. She took a doll that the teacher had given her and yanked off his head and threw it down on the ground. And Helen's teacher said, "I cannot teach Helen until she learns how to behave. She can't learn anything until she knows how to behave. So I need to take her by herself into just some place and teach her." And so Helen and her teacher went to a little house that was behind the great big house, and they had a battle for many days before Helen could sit down at the table with a napkin and a knife and a fork and a spoon, and she could eat. And she learned how to behave. But the thing that Helen did not learn, she couldn't understand what those little finger symbols were that her teacher was trying to teach her. She thought they were just little finger games. And Helen's teacher did not know how she could teach her until one day they were in the front of the house and somebody was pumping water. And her teacher had an idea. She took Helen's hand and she put it underneath the water. The water spilled over her hand. And she spelled W-A-T-E-R. Helen got a look on her face that she had never had. She understood what that meant. She pulled her teacher's hand closer again. Spell it again. W-A-T-E-R. 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 Helen fell down on the grass. She pointed to the grass, and her teacher spelled G-R-A-S-S. G-R-A-S-S. Helen ran to the porch, put her hands in some dirt, and her teacher spelled out D-I-R-T. She ran to the fence, and her teacher spelled out F-E-N-C-E, fence. Helen, all day long, was pulling her teacher's hand, asking her to spell this, that, this, that, this. Constantly, she was learning how to spell words. Her teacher took her to the circus, and Helen felt the coarse, rough hide of the elephant. And her teacher spelled out E-L-E-P-H-A-N-T. She was able to touch a monkey's tail and to touch a monkey's side, and her teacher spelled out M-O-N-K-E-Y. Helen learned very quickly. When Helen was 9 years old, she and her teacher went to the school, Perkins School for the Deaf, and Helen learned how to read little bumps on paper that meant words. She learned how to read Braille. Helen's favorite place was in the library reading books. When Helen was 16 years old, she wanted to do something that no deaf or blind person had ever done. She wanted to go to college. Everybody told her, you can't go to college. You're deaf and blind. You can't do it. No one's ever done this before. But Helen said, I can do this. And she asked her teacher to teach her everything that she needed to know for those entrance examinations. When she took those examinations, she passed them. She went to college. After she went to college, she wrote a book. Then she wrote more books, and people began asking her to speak out in public. People all over the United States, people all over the world, Greece, Italy, England, France. She became very famous. A movie was made out of her life, which even won an Academy Award. She became known as the First Lady of Courage. All because her teacher taught her how to read. This is the story of, say it out loud, who was it? Helen Keller.